You came here to us to talk to us about insurance today.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you into insurance industry.
I've been in insurance for 20 years. Started at Aviva,
Mhm.
selling household motor insurance, and then progressed through the ranks to underwriting consultant. Did sell high net worth insurance as well. And then I spent a lot of time in doing project work,
Mhm.
but I was on a secondment, so I then, when my area of expertise or my area that I worked in with doing headcounts, I took voluntary redundancy, managed to get a job straight away at Alan Boswell Group, started off in property owners insurance, and I've been there for 3 years now, and just recently moved into the role of business account manager.
So what's your responsibility on this role?
So now my responsibilities are dealing with letting agents, like yourself, either directly or indirectly, selling primarily legal and rent guarantee insurance, but also working with them to introduce business such as landlords insurance, tenants contents insurance, home emergency, etc. on behalf of their clients.
So many insurances there.
Lots of
and
insurance.
when any kind of insurance company calling us and start talking about different insurances, for some landlords it just goes like that. They don't, not like, whoever has been in the business for some time, they understand it, they can distinguish between the two, but whoever is a newbie will not know at all what you mean and what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I would like to ask you if there is an insurances like landlord's insurance or any other insurances you mentioned, how does a landlord insurance vary from a building insurance?
Well, I would say landlord's insurance predominantly is buildings insurance, because they're obviously insuring their investment and the property that they let to tenants. Our covers would cover obviously the buildings, but also liabilities. So if there was anything that the landlord was responsible for, any negligent, easy to say, then obviously if there was a legal problem from a liability perspective, then the policy would pick that up as well. So well, the main differences is making sure that it's fit for purpose and fit for your needs. So in terms of differences in landlords and general household policies, then the landlord's policy would cover 90 days of unoccupancy, because obviously there is going to be cases where you're in between tenants, might be doing a slight refurb, etc. So it gives you that opportunity to be able to do that in a timely time scale, whereas personal household insurance would probably only give you up to 60 days, between 45 and 60 days, so it gives you that extra time. Other differences, you get full malicious damage by tenants under our policies, so if a tenant does do damage to the property.
So under building insurance, there is malicious damage is not included, but the landlord's insurance will include malicious damage.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is a landlord insurance something extra on the top of a building insurance? I'm just asking, I know the answer from experience, but I know that our newbies landlords, they would not know what the difference between the two right from the start. Do they need additional insurance, or can you get away just with household insurance when you're renting a property?
Yeah, so I would say no, you can't just have a normal household policy, because that would be bought on the basis that you're actually living in that policy, so you'd be disclosing wrong information to the insurer, and that could potentially cause issues at claim stage. So that's why it's, from our perspective, we would only ever sell a specific landlord insurance, which is a different policy altogether, and therefore they know that that policy will pay out at claim stage.
Okay. The insurances, so you said that you can't rent out the property just with a normal standard insurance. You have to have a landlord insurance if you are a landlord.
Yeah.
What other insurances would you need to have?
Well, there's additional covers that you can purchase. So legal and rent guarantee, for example, would protect yourself against a tenant not paying the rent for whatever reason. So they might have fallen on hard times or lost employment, etc. But our policy would then kick in and pay the rent.
So how does it work? I mean, just walk me through the process. Let's say I'm a landlord, I've taken out a legal insurance, rent guarantee, landlord's insurance, the whole package.
Okay.
and my tenant lost a job,
Hmm.
and they now for, let's say, 3 weeks not paying me rent.
Okay.
What is the process? What do I do and how does it work?
Well, the policy itself, you're not able to go into a claim situation for the legal rent guarantee until they're 2 months in arrears. Okay, but what we tend to say as a company is if you let us know when they miss the first payment, we can make a note on the system and kind of be warmed up to the fact that there's potentially going to be a claim very soon. Then when they miss the second payment, you would notify us. We would ask for all relevant information to be sent in, like tenancy agreement, proof of identity, proof of earnings, etc., that you took before the tenancy started and before the policy was incepted. And then we would then pass it on to solicitors and they would start acting to get the tenant evicted, etc.
Yeah.
And obviously then the insurance would start paying the rent back to you as well.
And what are the amounts we're talking about rent?
Would
Would insurance cover all rent or just a part of the rent?
Yeah, so generally our product covers up to £2,500
£2,500
per calendar month. And it pays out for up to 15 months. Although it's an annual policy, you would receive payments for up to 15 months.
Okay.
Not that I've seen a claim go that long, but that is there if you need it. Yeah.
But there is this, peace of mind that you will have that if needed.
Absolutely.
How would you describe a rent guarantee insurance?
So I would.
How can I describe for one of my landlords? What is it in a simplistic way?
Yeah, so I would just say that it protects you as a landlord from the situation that your tenant just stops paying rent and then you've got a tenant stuck in your property that you're unable to deal with necessarily on your own, whereas our policy would take care of the eviction process itself with the legal cover and also the missing rent as part of that as well.
So if there is a legal cover, then the landlord would not need me to apply for the court or anything or submit their Section 21.
No.
Would you do that straight away?
Yeah, so we've got a panel of solicitors that we would approach and they would take the case on and they would issue all the section notices, issue all the letters, etc. on behalf of the landlord and deal with that side of things.
Perfect. So they deal with the sections as well and with the court.
Yes.
Because normally it's under current circumstances, normally it's the agent that issues the notices.
Okay.
But if solicitors, if you have a policy, then your solicitors will be able to do that. So we have had a question. The apartment is in a block of flats, and obviously with the block of flats you have a building insurance as a part of the block. Do you still need the landlord's insurance there?
Yeah, so the freeholder would be insuring the buildings side of things. But as a leaseholder, as you would be if you've got an individual flat within there, you'd still be responsible for maybe your own fixtures and fittings, white goods, for example, and also your general contents, so soft furnishings like beds, wardrobes, etc. If you're leasing it or renting it on a furnished basis, but also you want your liability cover as well. So again, if someone in your property had a slip, trip or fall that was deemed your fault because you were negligent, might be a loose carpet or something that you knew about but didn't fix it and cause a liability issue, then again your policy would take and deal with that on your behalf.
Okay, so we're talking about liability. Does a normal building insurance policy have that liability cover?
Most buildings policies or any sort of policy would have a liability cover of sorts. Sometimes it's quite minimal though, say 1 or 2 million. So depending on where your property is and what happens, I mean, you could have a circumstance where, you know, a high-flying lawyer or something slips, trips or falls that was your fault,
Could be
and then
really sad.
yeah, and then loss of earnings, etc. And if you don't have that level of cover, you know, those can run into hundreds of thousands of pounds, and you'd be liable for that if you didn't have an insurance policy that covered that liability for you.
And then with the content insurance, so does it a content insurance that has that like public liability part, or does it a landlord insurance have this liability part included in it?
Yeah, it depends which part you're covering. So if it's a standard household and you were covering buildings insurance, for example, it would be called property owners liability, but it's kind of one of the same thing. Whereas if you're a leaseholder and you've got contents and liability, which would be public liability, but they all cover the same circumstances. It's just under a slightly different name.
Right. Is really, really important, especially for our landlords. I normally say that just check if you have the liability aspect written into your policy, because I have seen policies where it's just not included at all.
Sometimes you have to physically ask for it. Sometimes it is provided, but like I say, at a lower level, like a 1 or 2 million. We tend to suggest to our clients that to have a minimum of £5 million worth of.
Is there a particular reason why?
Just because, like I say, these can, if you're in the unfortunate circumstance and have a situation where you do have a high earner that gets an injury, then it's just better to have that peace of mind that that is going to be able to be covered.
We have heard that in recent years the insurance premiums have gone up quite a lot. Do you know why it may happen?
Yeah, so I'm sure you would have heard about something called COVID.
Oh yes.
From an insurance point of view, so during COVID, sourcing materials, etc., to fix properties and general contents, etc., there were delays and price increases, inflated premiums, because insurers is a business at the end of the day, and if they're getting inflated claims cost, whether you've made the claim yourself or not, they're having to pass that shortfall on to their clients. Likewise, so Brexit has had, Brexit has had a similar effect. You know, where you'd be able to source materials from the continent or via Europe, it's harder for those things to get there, which again inflates costs.
All the repairs with the insurance policies. So we're talking about cost of repair and the tenant's contents. You mentioned, doesn't landlord insurance cover the content of the tenant? Let's say there was a leak and the tenant's laptop got damaged. Would normal landlord insurance provide the cover for that?
No, so under the landlord's policy, they're only really protecting their own interest and their insurable interest. So that would be a building's, if necessary, if it is, you know, like a property that they need to insure as freeholder. But it would cover their contents if they were furnishing the property on behalf of the tenant and leasing it on a...
Like fixtures and fittings?
Yeah. Ordinarily, they're normally covered under the buildings, but if it's a block of flats, you can add that on under the contents. But predominantly, it's the tenant's responsibility to insure their own contents, and we can provide a policy for that. It's fairly reasonable. I think it's like £85 minimum for a year, but that covers it for theft, accidental damage, fire. General perils that they would have within their own residence that they might fall foul of.
And that called?
So it's tenant's contents insurance.
Tenant's contents insurance. All right, so the tenant can buy it themselves or the landlord can offer it for the tenant if they choose to do so.
Yeah. It would ultimately be the tenant's responsibility to purchase it. I mean, the landlord could suggest it's a good idea to do so, but it would be the tenant's responsibility to purchase that policy.
We do include it in our pack, and we normally refer them to yourself.
Yeah.
But this is really good things to explain to them why they need it, because sometimes, you know, I said, if you look at the list of insurances, and there are a lot, sometimes can be quite confusing which one to buy and which one not to buy. In regards to, we were talking about different insurances, and also if there is a claim, for example. So I'm an agent and I have a policy of rent guarantee for our landlords because it comes as part of our package for them when the property is managed by ourselves. But let's say the landlord bought their own insurance. It could be either rent guarantee or building insurance, and there is a claim. Does the agent allowed to deal with the claim, or is the tenant allowed to deal with the claim? What are the policies, or what are your policies and procedures around that aspect?
Yeah, fundamentally, if the landlord is taking out the insurance themselves, then it would be their responsibility to do the claims process. They can give permission for an agent to work and act on their behalf, but that has to be specifically given as permission and documented on the policy for us to be able to then, obviously, or for them to pass DPA and be able to speak to us directly about that.
Good. And can the third party take a policy on a property that they do not own and have a landlord's insurance or building insurance? Let's say there are lots of rents going around now, and are the party who is renting from a landlord, obtaining all the insurance and legal packs, and then subletting it to the tenant. So they have all of the policies under their name. Is it permissible?
No, so I would say in terms of rent-to-rent stuff, we're talking about what, short stay, service accommodation
short
risks?
Stay, what they do, sometimes it's HMOs. What they do, they take a property on a guaranteed rent from the landlord. And then let's say I'm a third party, so there is an agent and I'm a third party. I rent it from the agent, I pay them a fixed amount of money, and then I look after all of the utilities, I look after insurances, I look after everything. So I take then insurance under my name, I insure that house, and then if there is a claim, is there complications to deal with that?
Yeah, so we always go from the basis of it being the freeholder's responsibility to insure the buildings. So we even for our short stay and service accommodation risks, we always maintain that the freeholder should continue to insure the buildings. And then from a short stay service accommodation point of view, we have got a policy that they're able to cover their contents, liability and business interruption, which is quite pertinent in that particular
So there is
area.
another insurance available for that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, we're going to come back to that in a minute.
Okay.
And so you would advise the owner of the property, if they are the owner, not to pass the responsibility for insuring the building to anybody else, but to obtain it under their name.
Yeah.
Am I right to understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So coming back to your service accommodation, Airbnb and holiday lets, what kind of insurance do you offer? Tell us about that.
So it's similar to landlord insurance, and from the fact that it covers buildings if you're required to. So if it's the freeholder doing the service accommodation, then we can cover the buildings. However, if it's a leaseholder situation or a rent-to-rent, obviously you don't need to cover the buildings. Yeah. So it then covers your contents, your liabilities, and your business interruption. Okay.
So if we're looking at, there is a building insurance, there is landlord's insurance, then there is the Airbnb or short, what do you call that insurance?
We call it short stay.
Short stay. So there is a short stay insurance. So the landlord will need to purchase building insurance and landlord's insurance, and then whoever does the short-term stay will have to purchase the short stay insurance.
Yeah, but we can cover the buildings under the short stay if they're the freeholder actually using it for that purpose. They're not letting someone else do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it going to be one policy or three policies?
If it's the freeholder doing it, I would say it's just the one.
One. So
policy.
that will include building, content, or whatever they want to include.
Yes.
So it can all be done in one paper,
absolutely,
in one go.
Yeah.
So walk me through the process. How do they do it if they would like to get a quote from yourself?
Okay, so you can phone us up and give us all the information over the phone, or we do have a data collection sheet. It's about 3 pages long though, that we can email to the client or send in a post, and they fill it in, send it back to us, and then we put it on the system and give them a rate. We've got 2 insurers that provide the short stay insurance for us. It's Aviva, so massive well-known company locally and internationally, and SAGIC, which is an acronym of Salvation Army General Insurance Company. A lot of people don't know that Salvation Army do insurance, but they've been around for about 100 years. So those 2 insurers provide the short stay insurance.
So what are the benefits of people coming to you rather than going, let's say, compare the market or any other comparison websites, or why should they choose you?
I think the main reason really to go through a broker in this day and age is their level of expertise. So we're professionals. So like we was discussing, we're doing a video because not everyone knows about insurance and needs someone sometimes to take the responsibility. So by coming to us, we ask all the relevant information, gather all the information that's required to then approach what we would call the market and find the best solution to them. It might not always be the cheapest, but we would always come back and say, well, you've got maybe a couple of options. So you can go with these guys, which is the cheapest option, but here's the covers that it falls down on. Or you can go slightly more expensive, but the cover is wider and gives you more peace of mind, I guess, in the event that anything should occur.
And what the companies, except the Aviva and Sajik that we have mentioned, what other companies that you work with?
Okay, so on our what we call our in-house schemes, so we have 4 insurers, 2 of which we've already mentioned, so Aviva and Sajik, but we also have NIG, which is UK Insurance Limited, and Covéa. And so we've got a panel of 4 insurers that ultimately, 95% of our business would be placed with, and they do vary a little bit in terms of appetite and cover, not massively, but so there's the opportunity there for 95% of our business to go. If there is anything a bit around the outside of their acceptance criteria, or a bit of what I would call a distressed risk with bad claims experience or a history of subsidence, something like that, then we might need to go what we call open market, and then open market opens other avenues to places like AXA, Zurich, Arch, who have a wider acceptance criteria. The only thing when we have to go to those guys is we lose kind of a control over premium and discounts, and it's a case of, well, yeah, we'll take the risk, but it's take it or leave it in terms of premium and excess.
No, that's absolutely understandable, and I have had some claims with yourself for some of the properties, and they've been going really, really smooth. So thank you very much.
That's good to know.
I can recommend your insurance, and hence that's why we are doing this interview today, because I'm confident that you'll be able to provide support to our clients the same as you did for us.
It's when you find the main benefit of your insurance policy, I think, when it comes to claim stage, and obviously getting that claim dealt with efficiently and quickly, and obviously with giving correct information and feedback. That's brilliant.
We were talking about insurances claims and the claim handling. So who handles the claim? How, can you walk me through the process of a claim, with agents, with tenants, with landlord? How does the process work, and what do you need to do?
Okay, well, claims isn't my area per se. However, one of the benefits of dealing with us as a broker at Allen Boswell's is that we have an in-house claims team. So not many brokers have that. Again, it's more like they would then pass the responsibility to whoever's insuring via them to go directly to the insurer. We don't do that. The benefit of dealing with us is you make one call to us, give the details to our claims team, who then, if they can't deal with it under the delegated authority that the insurers provide us, then they will liaise with the insurer and deal with the claim on your behalf. So really, like I say, the benefit of coming through us is it's very light touch from either an agent, a landlord or a tenant perspective, because it's kind of one call, lodge the claim, we do all the legwork, and take care of the claim.
Easy life. If somebody wants to obtain obviously insurance quote, you provide them with the quote. Then obviously they set up the policy, and you provide all the documents. How can they obtain the documents if, let's say, they're not very good with the emails? We often have that if somebody who is not very computer literate, they don't want any paperwork to be emailed to them. How do you approach that?
Yeah, so it's all personal preference, personal service. So as long as they make that clear to whoever they're dealing with, whether that is email, by phone, etc., that I want my docs posted, for example, we can still
because some
do that.
insurances will not post you the documents. Everything is online portal, and you can only access it online.
Yeah, no, it's personal preference as far as we're concerned. There's an option on our system to do prefer email or prefer post, and then we're aware of the situation. And sometimes, I have one-to-one clients, so I'm speaking to some of my clients directly, so I get a feel for how they want things, and just do that automatically for them in the end. So it gets to a point where you don't even have to remind us.
Oh, that's good. You mentioned to us new home emergency cover.
Okay.
Tell me about that.
So home emergency is available for landlords to protect their properties against things that are unforeseen and happening as an emergency. So things,
just for the landlords?
Yeah, just for landlords. I think there is a home emergency for personal insurance, but I don't get involved in that, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. Although I guess that would work in a similar way, but it protects you against boiler breakdown, for example. So if your heating system packs up, then you would ring the claim line, and they would send out a plumber or a heating engineer.
Is there a time scale? How soon they can send somebody?
Yeah, well, it's home emergency, so they'll need to send them pretty quickly. So it's as quick as they can get someone to you, and cover is capped at £500, so they will give up to £500
Right.
of parts and labour for you. In terms of the boiler cover specifically, if the £500 won't cover it, or it's beyond economical repair, then they'll actually give you that £500 towards the cost of a new boiler.
Oh, right.
But it also covers electricity, so if the electricity stops, etc., then they'll send an electrician out. Also pests as well, so black rat, brown rat, mice, wasp nest, etc., then they'll send a pest control out to deal with that situation.